Yo, what's up, history nerds and health freaks? Buckle up because today we're diving headfirst into the Middle Ages. Yep, that glorious time of knights, castles, and questionable hygiene. But plot twist, some of their weird medieval habits? Actually kind of genius. No, seriously, look, while most people think medieval folks just ran around in chainmail yelling, "Huzzah!" and dying of the plague, they were also doing stuff that modern wellness influencers would charge you $499.99 for in a 4-week online course. And they did it without TikTok, green juice, or oat milk lattes. Today's topic, medieval habits that low-key slap in 2025. And a few that are absolute health nightmares. Spoiler alert, if you're squeamish, maybe skip the part about leeches. We're talking food, sleep, hygiene, exercise, kind of, and how people back then might have accidentally been healthier than us, even without protein shakes or gym selfies. Think of it like this. Imagine someone from 1375 showing up today, side-eyeing your kombucha and saying, "Bro, we had that. We called it fermented cabbage water and drank it to survive winter." Yeah, that kind of vibe. We'll break it all down. Which medieval habits are worth stealing, which ones should stay in the past where they belong, and which ones might just blow your mind a little. Some of these things actually make sense even now. Others? Let's just say we're grateful for modern plumbing. So grab your goblet or your reusable water bottle, find a comfy seat, preferably not a torture chair, and let's get weird with history. Time to find out whether the past was secretly more woke than we are, or just very, very lucky not to die by age 30. Let's get into it. Medieval diet. Surprisingly, not trash. All right, let's talk food. And no, medieval peasants weren't out there munching on turkey legs all day like it's a Renaissance fair. That's Hollywood nonsense. In reality, their diets were kinda legit. Like accidentally better than your DoorDash order, legit. Most peasants lived off bread, grains, legumes, onions, cabbage, and whatever they could grow, forage, or not die eating. Meat? Rare. Sugar? Basically non-existent. Processed food? LOL, the most processed thing they had was turning barley into beer. You know what that sounds like. A high-fiber, plant-based, low-sugar, minimal meat diet. Basically what every nutritionist on Instagram is screaming about these days. These guys were doing the Mediterranean diet before it was cool, minus the feta cheese. And don't even get me started on fasting. The church had like 1 billion fast days. Lent wasn't just about giving up chocolate. People would go weeks eating nothing but veggies, grains, and fish. That's not just religious discipline. That's intermittent fasting with extra steps. And guess what? It worked. They didn't have insulin spikes or sugar crashes every afternoon. They weren't smashing 5 iced lattes before noon. Sure, they had zero concept of calories, macros, or clean eating, but their bodies were like, "Thanks for not poisoning me today." Now, I'm not saying we should all live on turnips and sadness. Peasant life was rough, like no teeth by 40. Rough. But their eating habits? Honestly, there's stuff worth stealing. Less processed junk, more fiber. No Uber Eats at 2 a.m. Just whatever was left in the root cellar. So next time someone tries to sell you a 12-week clean eating plan, just remember, medieval peasants invented it, accidentally, while trying not to starve. Respect. Rich people food tastes like gout. While peasants were out there surviving on grains and hope, the medieval upper class was living their best overindulgent life. And by best, I mean a cholesterol-fueled, fiber-free death march straight into chronic disease. Fancy, right? Let's set the scene. You're a noble. You've got land, gold, a suspiciously large collection of fur cloaks, and a banquet table so loaded it looks like a medieval buffet exploded. Your average dinner? Roasted boar, venison, beef, rabbit, more beef, maybe a swan if you're feeling spicy. Oh, and bread. So much white bread it would make Wonder Bread cry. Vegetables? Ew. That was peasant food. Why eat a turnip when you can eat the animal that eats turnips? And fruit? Only if it was candied beyond recognition and soaked in wine. Because nothing says health like fruit that's been drowned in sugar and fermented alcohol. This wasn't food. This was status on a plate. The more meat you ate, the fancier you looked. Fiber was for commoners. The result? Surprise. They got sick. Like a lot. Obesity, digestive issues, and good old gout, aka the disease of kings, ran rampant in noble circles. It's basically what happens when your diet is 90% red meat and 10% regret. Imagine flexing on peasants while secretly suffering from joint pain because you couldn't say no to your sixth leg of lamb. That's medieval irony at its finest. To be fair, they didn't know about vitamins, antioxidants, or heart disease. They just knew meat was tasty, expensive, and made them look powerful. Who cared if it also made their kidneys scream? So, yeah, being rich in the Middle Ages meant you could eat whatever you wanted, and probably die earlier than the guy shoveling manure for a living. Wellness? Never heard of her. Lesson here? Eat like a peasant, not a prince. Your arteries will thank you. The medieval sleep hack. That's weirdly smart. All right, time to talk about sleep. You know, that thing we all suck at in the 21st century because of doom scrolling, caffeine addiction, and late-night Netflix binges. But plot twist? Medieval folks? They actually had a sleep schedule that kind of makes sense. Wild, right? Enter segmented sleep, aka first sleep and second sleep. Sounds like a glitch in the Matrix, but nope, it was totally normal back then. Here's how it worked. People would go to bed shortly after sunset, because, hello, no electricity. Sleep for about 4 hours, then wake up in the middle of the night. Not panicked, not stressed, just up, for like an hour or two. Then they'd go back to bed for a second round of sleep till dawn. And what did they do during that nighttime intermission? Oh, just casual stuff. Pray, read, talk, maybe sneak in some spicy time with the spouse. Yep, medieval sexy hour was real. It wasn't weird, it was just part of the rhythm of life. Modern science actually backs this up. Turns out, segmented sleep is totally natural. Our bodies are kind of wired for it. Studies show people left in total darkness for extended periods often fall into this exact two-part pattern. So yeah, medieval folks might have been onto something way before sleep hygiene TikTok. Compare that to now, we cram 6 hours of sleep into a chaos-ridden schedule, chug espresso at midnight, and wonder why we're zombies. Meanwhile, medieval people were getting 2 peaceful sleep phases, journaling by candlelight and vibing with their goats. Of course, it wasn't all romantic. Their mattresses were basically sacks of straw, and Bug City was alive and well. But still, waking up in the middle of the night wasn't a crisis. It was a lifestyle. So next time you randomly wake up at 3 a.m. and think your life is falling apart, maybe you're just accidentally sleeping like a medieval monk. Congrats? Should you actually try medieval sleep in 2025? So, waking up in the middle of the night like it's totally normal? Sounds unhinged. But maybe, just maybe, those candlelit insomniac vibes from the Middle Ages weren't that crazy after all. Modern researchers have looked into this segmented sleep thing, and guess what? It's real. Turns out, if you remove artificial light and let people chill in total darkness for a couple weeks, their bodies naturally shift into that first sleep, midnight wake-up, second sleep cycle. It's like your brain flips to medieval mode all on its own, and it's not just about sleep quantity, it's the quality. Some studies show that people doing segmented sleep report feeling more rested, less anxious, and mentally sharper. Like imagine waking up not hating life. Revolutionary. That 1 to 2 hour wake gap between sleeps? Apparently, it can be super chill. People used it for meditation, prayer, journaling, or just thinking. You know, that thing we forgot how to do because we're constantly doom scrolling or yelling at our phone for not loading fast enough. Now, before you ditch your 9 to 5 and move into a cottage to live your segmented sleep dreams, hold up. This doesn't work for everyone. If your job, school, or parenting life requires you to be a functioning human at 7 a.m. sharp, waking up for 90 minutes at 2 a.m. might not exactly vibe with your schedule. Also, trying to force segmented sleep in a world full of artificial lights, noise, and Instagram notifications is tricky. You need pitch darkness, no distractions, and ideally zero anxiety about being awake at weird hours. Good luck with that in 2025. But if you're a night owl, a creative type, or just tired of feeling tired, experimenting with segmented sleep could be worth it. Maybe your body's been waiting 700 years to live its best medieval life. Worst case? You lose some sleep and gain a cool historical fact to flex at parties. Medieval people. Walk so much they'd laugh at your step tracker. Let's talk movement. These days we obsess over getting our steps in like it's a life or death mission. You've got fitness watches buzzing if you've sat down for 20 minutes. People pacing around their kitchens just to hit 10K. But you know who didn't need a Fitbit to stay active? Everyone in the Middle Ages. These folks walked everywhere. To the fields, to the market, to church, to their neighbor's house 2 villages over. Want some water? Grab a bucket and go hike half a mile to the well. Forgot something? Too bad. You're walking again. There was no Uber, no scooters, no lazy day mode. If you wanted to do literally anything, it involved your feet and probably mud. Modern historians estimate that your average medieval peasant easily clocked 15,000 to 20,000 steps a day, and not because they were into wellness. They were just trying to survive. And while we're out here arguing over standing desks, they were hauling firewood and chasing escaped chickens like it was CrossFit. Also, let's not forget the footwear. These weren't running shoes with orthopedic memory foam. They were thin leather slabs barely keeping your toes off the ground. Medieval podiatry was just pain. But here's the thing, this constant low-intensity movement. Kinda genius. Modern health experts call it NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just a fancy way of saying all the movement you do that's not technically exercise. Medieval life was one big NEAT fest. So yeah, turns out the people we think of as dirt-covered, plague-dodging farmers were actually killing it in the move more, sit less game. Without YouTube workouts, without fitness apps, just pure survival energy. Next time your watch nags you to stand up, imagine a medieval peasant rolling their eyes from the 1300s like, "Bro, we've been standing since sunrise." Medieval peasants, the original CrossFit champions. Kind of. So, modern fitness culture. It's all gym memberships, protein powders, and influencers yelling at you to engage your core. Meanwhile, medieval peasants were out there accidentally doing the most functional full-body workouts of all time, with zero gym fees and 100% chance of back pain. Let's break it down. These folks didn't work out. They worked, digging ditches, hauling water, chopping wood, plowing fields, grinding grain by hand. You know, the kind of stuff that would make even a CrossFit coach say, "Whoa, chill." Need upper body strength? Try lifting buckets of water from a well every morning. Want leg day? Walk 5 miles to the market and back carrying a sack of turnips. Core training? Ever try kneading dough for an entire family with 12 kids using medieval flour and hope? That's a plank in disguise. And get this, they did it every single day. No rest days, no stretching apps, no post-workout smoothies. Just you, your muscles, and the crushing weight of feudal survival. Ironically, this kind of constant, practical movement is exactly what modern trainers now call functional fitness. Movements that mimic real life. Lifting, squatting, twisting, carrying. All the stuff peasants mastered because they had no choice. You think your kettlebell swing is impressive? Try lugging a dead pig half a mile. And while today's fitness scene has us arguing about which gym playlist gets us the most gains, medieval folks had one track. Please don't die of exhaustion before sunset. Remastered. To be fair, they weren't doing this for aesthetics. No one cared about having abs when they were just trying to not freeze to death. But the results? Strong backs, solid legs, durable bodies. Functional, not flashy. So yeah, next time you lift weights in an air-conditioned gym and call it primal training, remember, peasants invented that, while wearing wool, in the rain. Medieval hygiene, cleaner than you think. until it wasn't. Okay, let's clear something up. Medieval people were not just filthy trolls rolling around in mud all day. That's a myth, mostly. Sure, some stuff was genuinely disgusting, but the idea that no one ever bathed or brushed their teeth? Total nonsense. They tried. They really did. Let's start with the good news. Bathing was a thing. Public bathhouses were pretty popular, especially before the Black Death turned everyone into paranoid germaphobes. People bathed in tubs, used soaps made from animal fat and ash, and even had scented oils. Yeah, medieval spa day was real. In cities, bathhouses were social hubs. You'd hang out, gossip, maybe even get a shave. Were they also occasionally used as medieval Tinder lounges? Yeah. But let's focus on the cleanliness part. People also washed their hands and faces regularly, especially before meals. Monks had strict hygiene rules, and even peasants, as poor as they were, knew that clean hands shot fewer stomach problems. Medieval Logic 101. But here's where it goes downhill. Toilets? Questionable at best. Castle folks had garderobes, basically a hole that dropped your business into the moat below. If you were lucky, it didn't splash. Peasants used outhouses or the classic dig a hole and pray no one walks by. And let's not even talk about chamber pots. No. Dental hygiene? They had toothpicks and chewed herbs to freshen their breath, which is kind of cool. But there were no dentists, just random barbers with pliers and bravery. Toothache? You were probably getting it yanked with zero anesthesia and a prayer to Saint Apollonia, patron saint of not dying during dental work, basically. So, were medieval folks cleaner than pop culture gives them credit for? Definitely. Were they hygienic by modern standards? LOL, not even close. But hey, they tried, and honestly, they had fewer microplastics in their water, so maybe they win? Medieval beauty hacks. Glowing skin or accidental poisoning. You think modern skincare is wild? Buckle up, because medieval beauty routines were the ultimate chaotic mix of genius, desperation, and accidental chemistry experiments. These people were out here inventing DIY face masks before TikTok, just, with lead. Let's start with the skin. Pale skin equals peak hotness in medieval Europe. Tans were for peasants, because sunlight, while the upper class wanted to look like they'd never seen a field in their life. To achieve that ethereal vampire princess glow, women would actually use lead-based powders. Yup, lead. On their faces, because nothing says timeless beauty like slowly poisoning yourself for aesthetics. For extra smoothness, some tried mercury treatments. Spoiler, that didn't end well. Shiny skin. Sure, shaky hands and hallucinations. Also, yes, but not every beauty trick was a chemical disaster. Some were low-key brilliant. People used rose water, aloe vera, egg whites, and honey, all things that modern skincare gurus swear by. Want a tightening face mask? Egg whites? Moisture boost? Honey? Puffy eyes? Cold herbs? They were basically medieval influencers, just without the ring light. And don't even get me started on hair. Long, braided, and ideally light-colored. Again, rich person aesthetic. Women used chamomile rinses to brighten blonde hair and vinegar to add shine. So yeah, they basically invented natural clarifying shampoos. Who knew? As for makeup, it was subtle, unless you were a court noble. Then it was all about those bold brows, flushed cheeks, thanks to crushed berries or wine, and lips tinted with whatever red pigment didn't taste like regret. Of course, this was all done without dermatologists, SPF, or ingredient labels. So yeah, sometimes their skin glowed, because it was literally inflamed. Lesson: medieval beauty was a gamble. Some of their DIYs were ahead of their time. Others? Let's just say you shouldn't follow 14th century skincare advice without a modern disclaimer. Medieval mental health, when monks basically invented mindfulness. All right, let's get a little deep. Mental health in the Middle Ages? Not exactly what we'd call Instagram-worthy, but here's the twist. Some medieval folks, mostly monks, were actually onto something that modern psychology only recently rediscovered. Life back then was brutal, disease, war, famine, and the constant looming threat of death, plus zero Netflix. Stress? Anxiety? Depression? Oh yeah, all the medieval feels were real and raw. But the monks? They had a plan. Instead of doom-scrolling through parchment scrolls or freaking out over the Black Death, they practiced meditation, prayer, and contemplation. Basically, the OG mindfulness. Monks spent hours in silent prayer, focusing on their breathing, repeating mantras, and tuning out distractions. Sound familiar? That's because mindfulness meditation today is basically a polished-up version of their spiritual hustle. They believed calming the mind was essential to surviving life's chaos, a mindset that's surprisingly modern. Their daily routines included structured times for work, rest, and reflection, which helped regulate emotions and keep anxiety in check. Plus, monks often wrote about the importance of community and purpose, two big mental health boosters we're still trying to master. The monastery wasn't just a religious spot. It was a social support system before social workers existed. Of course, medieval explanations for mental illness were a little medieval. Sometimes it was possession by spirits or imbalanced humors. Not quite cognitive behavioral therapy, but hey, everyone's figuring it out. The takeaway? While the Middle Ages were far from perfect, they remind us that mindfulness, routine, and community aren't new inventions. Maybe we could all learn a thing or two from those candlelit monks who sat quietly instead of doom-scrolling. So next time your brain won't chill, channel your inner medieval monk. Light a candle, breathe deeply, and try not to think about 14th century plagues. Easy, right? Medieval remedies, some magic, some madness. Medieval medicine was basically a grab bag of, will this work? And, oh no, why did we try that? The docs back then were part scientist, part magician, and a little bit of, let's just hope for the best. First, the good stuff. Herbs. People actually knew that plants like lavender, chamomile, garlic, and thyme had healing properties. They brewed teas, made poultices, and sometimes even cured infections. No joke. Nature was the original pharmacy, and some of their wisdom survives in modern herbal remedies. But then things got weird, like really weird. Bloodletting was all the rage. Got a headache? Let's bleed you. Fever? More bleeding. The idea was to balance your humors, basically your body's mysterious fluids. Spoiler, it usually just made people weaker and occasionally caused fainting or death. Great plan. Ever heard of snake oil? Medieval version, using crushed snakes or poisonous plants as medicine. Sometimes it worked because of placebo or actual compounds. Sometimes it gave you hallucinations, and sometimes it just made you smell bad. Then there were the charm healers, people who swore that chanting spells, wearing lucky amulets, or even making magic circles could cure diseases. Science? Nope. Desperation? Definitely. And don't forget weird ingredients like mummy powder, yes, powdered mummies, and powdered unicorn horn, which was usually just narwhal tusk. No, I'm not kidding. The quest for a cure sometimes trumped common sense. So, while some medieval remedies actually laid the groundwork for modern medicine, others were straight-up medieval horror stories disguised as treatments. The moral? If you're ever feeling adventurous, stick to your doctor and maybe a chamomile tea, and leave the snake oil and powdered mummies to history books. Medieval habits. What to keep and what to kick to the curb. All right, we've journeyed through medieval diets, sleep hacks, workouts, hygiene, and even their questionable medicine cabinet. So what medieval habits should you steal for your 21st century life, and which should you definitely not? Keep these. Segmented sleep. That first sleep/wake/second sleep routine actually syncs with our biology. If you can carve out time for a peaceful midnight chill, do it. Just maybe skip the candlelit prayer circles unless you're into that vibe. Move like a peasant. Forget the gym treadmill. Walk more. Carry stuff. Be functional. Your body is made to move, not to binge watch for 8 hours straight. Herbal remedies, chamomile tea, honey on a sore throat, or a dab of aloe vera, Medieval folks knew some solid natural remedies that don't come with side effects, mostly. Mindfulness and routine. Those monks had it right. Daily rituals, quiet reflection, and community support can seriously boost your mental health. Kick these to the curb. Lead-based makeup. No matter how much you want that porcelain skin, please don't slather yourself in poison, bloodletting, and snake oil. Trust modern medicine, not medieval medical horror shows. Eating like a noble? Yes, they were fancy, but a diet heavy in fat, salt, and zero veggies? No thanks. Ignoring hygiene. Medieval baths were cool, but skipping regular showers in favor of superstition? Pass. So, medieval life was a mixed bag, some habits surprisingly ahead of their time, others downright bonkers. If you want to boost your health, dig into their smarter tricks, but leave the weird and dangerous stuff in the history books. And remember, you're not a medieval peasant. You've got running water, vitamin supplements, and Netflix. Use them wisely. Embrace the best of both worlds. Medieval wisdom meets modern life. So, you've got the rundown. Some medieval habits are absolute winners, and others, well, they belong in the dustbin of history. But here's the fun part. You don't have to live like it's 1350 to steal some of their health hacks. Think about it. You can adopt the medieval mindset of slowing down, moving more, and tuning into your body's natural rhythms without giving up your smartphone or cozy bed. Try waking up naturally without your phone alarm blaring. Maybe even experiment with that segmented sleep if you're feeling adventurous. Sip some chamomile tea before bed, like a monk preparing for silent contemplation. And get outside. Walk, stretch, haul groceries, dance in your living room, whatever moves you. At the same time, thank your lucky stars for modern medicine. If you get sick, go to a doctor, not a snake oil salesman. And please skip the lead makeup. The medieval world was rough, no doubt about it, but buried under the layers of dirt, plague, and questionable hygiene were some real gems of wisdom about how to live a healthier, more balanced life. So here's the challenge. Mix the old school with the new school. Be mindful, stay active, respect your sleep cycle, and keep that immune system strong. But do it with Wi-Fi and hot showers on your side. Because honestly, the best health hack might be knowing what to keep, what to toss, and how to have a little fun with history while you're at it. Why medieval health hacks still matter and why you shouldn't go full peasant. All right, before you start Googling how to live like a medieval peasant, let's keep it real. The Middle Ages were rough. Plagues, no electricity, and zero avocado toast. But the way people survived back then can still teach us a thing or two about health in the 21st century. First off, nature was the original health guru. Without gyms, pills, or kale smoothies, medieval folks relied on natural rhythms and natural remedies. Sleep according to the sun, move all day long, eat local seasonal food, and use plants to heal. Sounds simple, but our modern lives are so hectic that we often forget these basics. Second, their mindset was practical. No fad diets, no complicated wellness routines. They survived by sticking to what worked, walking a lot, eating what was available, resting when needed, and leaning on their community. Maybe that's a lesson for our overcomplicated, always-on culture. But let's not romanticize it too much. Those same habits that kept them alive weren't always comfortable or safe. You don't want to live without modern medicine, plumbing, or a good night's uninterrupted sleep. So why bother looking back? Because mixing medieval wisdom with modern science can help us get healthier without losing our minds or comfort. You don't have to reject technology to embrace natural movement or better sleep habits. The takeaway? Be inspired, not trapped. Try the good old stuff, more walking, less screen time before bed, maybe a herbal tea or two. And ditch the dangerous nonsense like lead makeup or bloodletting. In the end, health isn't about time machines or medieval cosplay. It's about balance, a little history, a little science, and a lot of common sense. Now go forth, live smart, and maybe enjoy your next nap like a 14th century noble with a bit more Wi-Fi.